Hey, this is Rob with Road Dirt, and we got us a project bike. It's actually a project bike that has been in the Road Dirt garage before. It is a 2001 Kawasaki ZR7s. Now, I've actually got the carburetors already out of it, and we got the tank. So I can show it to you. Tank's got to go to a shop that can have it scoured and cleaned and resealed because it's full of corrosion and rust and everything, as happens a lot with tanks that are older and have sat a long time. Cool story about this bike, which is kind of why we're going to make it kind of a road dirt project, is I actually first bought this bike from a guy in Tennessee back in, I want to say it was either 2010 or 2011, one of the two, and pulled the carbs out of it and gave it a good cleaning and got it for really cheap because it wasn't running. It was running, but it wasn't running well. And really, for like 25 years, it was the first kind of sport standard bike I had ever owned. I'd always been a cruiser rider ever since I've been street riding. And so it was kind of a fun bike to kind of get my legs and get my riding skills down with a bike like that. And interesting story behind it was that I actually, so I can get into the picture a little bit more here. I actually was riding it uptown one evening, and came out of a drugstore picking some stuff up for my wife, and there was an older guy with a cane, a little short guy, a lot shorter than I am, and I'm not real tall, and that was standing by the bike, just kind of standing there, looking it over, kind of admiring it. So we ended up chatting and talking a little bit, and come to find out, he had a couple of motorcycles in his garage, neither of which were running. One of them was a 1996 Kawasaki Vulcan 1500, that neon yellow color they ran that year, very polarizing. You either loved it or you hated it. And he had a 1999 red Triumph Sprint 955. And you know some of the story behind that one, or later on, the story that grew out of that. Well, make a long story short, neither one of those bikes were running. This one was, and he wanted to try. It was low enough seat height, lightweight enough. He wanted to try his hand at riding a few more years before he had to give up motorcycling completely. So we made a trade. He got this bike. I got the Kawasaki and the Sprint. Got the Kawasaki running, sold it to a guy in a town nearby. He rode the heck out of it for a number of years. And of course, I kept the Sprint. I ended up falling in love with it. It became, just a great sport touring motorcycle for me. I did a number of track days on it and had a blast on it for about 5 years or so. And then I sold it to pick up the Triumph Bonneville. I've always wanted a Bonneville, like the kind of bikes that my dad rode as a kid and that I grew up on. So anyway, so the story is with this, that about a month ago, this guy calls me up. I hadn't heard from him in years, and tells me that he and his wife are moving into a retirement community, kind of, a little bit farther out, and wanted to know if I'd be willing to take this bike back off his hands. Well, heck yeah, man! Absolutely. It was a bike I have fond memories of. My first real, pseudo sport bike, kind of a sport standard, and I loved it when I had it. So, problem is, I found out in the years since that he's had it, 8 or so years later, he's only ridden the thing like 2 times, and it sat in his garage for the next several years. It's got a 2014 tag on it, but according to his wife, he only rode it a couple of times. The carburetors all got gummed up, and the tank is full of rust. The petcock, literally I pulled it out, and the filter part of the petcock had just crumbled and fallen apart. It turned to dust. It was awful. Dead battery, of course. The plugs were still good in it, though. I took the plugs out, tested the plugs. 4 plugs are fine. So anyway, I'm going to get this tank and ship it off to a shop down in Florida, a guy named Craig Skyver that we've used before. Craig Paints Tanks .com. He's actually a custom painter, but he's got this very proprietary method of of tank restoration. And it's crazy because here in the Metro Atlanta area of Atlanta, Georgia, I can't find anybody that's willing to do tanks. And so I'm sending it to my man Craig, who's going to fix it up for us. So anyway, that's a bit of the story. I wanted to kind of highlight this with you. I'm excited to have the little bike back. Hoping to sell it once we get it running, but I don't know. We'll see. I may want to keep it once I get it running just because of the memories with it. So anyway, more coming soon. Rob with Road Dirt. Ride life.